Hi, I'm Tom Lynch, and in the next few minutes, I'm going to share something with you I call learning loops. Now, learning loops is this kind of approach to working in the classroom, kind of getting some differentiated instruction through kind of a station model approach. But the focus of it is in really trying to do have the same benefits of station models with students and teachers who might struggle with transitions in the classroom for lots of different reasons. And I've been working on this with a few different schools, mostly in the Bronx in New York City, and in particular at a middle school in the South Bronx with a literacy coach there named Rachel Heslowitz. And so the learning loops, it's pretty straightforward, but let me just kind of walk you through it. So um, it's not uncommon that teachers or administrators want to think about doing like stations work with students so that there's kind of built into the classroom structure some different ways for students to be exposed to different kinds of learning activities, right? That's pretty common. But the question is like, how do you go about doing that when your students might struggle with transitions or your teachers might struggle with transitions? So with learning loops, it starts with the way in which the classroom is configured, right? So what you'll see is that there's like this front of the classroom here, and then there's the back of the room here, and then we've got the desks are set up in a very particular way, right? There's two groups of four in the middle, then there's partners, right, who are in green here, and then there's individuals on the outside. And the idea is that over the period of about 8 class meetings, the students would move from one of these settings to another, right? So, for instance, we'll follow one group through an entire loop. So you'll see that there's like a group of students sitting here, and they might be working on one kind of activity. For example, it could be as simple as saying, like, when you're working in individuals and your individual stations, and you're going to be focusing on just kind of a sustained silent reading, let's say, or sustained silent writing. But there's a particular activity for the individuals, and the individuals are on both sides of the room, right? And they're there for about a class period. Again, because this is especially with in mind students who might struggle with transitions, trying to transition during a class period can be really, really hard. So you try to take advantage of once the transition is made and you're kind of into the class period, you try to keep them where they're at. And then on the next time the class meets, those same students would move to the back partner areas, right? So now they're working with one other person, and they're doing a different kind of work. It could, and the different kind of work could run the gamut in terms of all sorts of things. But on the next day that they come in, they're sitting in groups of 4. Again, they're doing different sorts of work there. And then on the next day, day 4, they're back with partners, doing work that lends itself to working with a partner, but perhaps being different than what they were doing on day 2. And then they're in individuals. And then day 6, 7, and 8 is their movement again, so that they would then start again in their individual stations on day 9, or which would be kind of the beginning of a new loop. And so it's relatively simple. I think some of the challenges is that you have to really, the teacher has to really think about like their seating, right? How the seating is arranged and who can sit next to each other and who can't. You also have to think about that not just in terms of like one static seating chart, but you have to think about it in terms of over the period of the loop. When are they going to be, when are certain students going to be near each other, and is that a problem in some cases, or is that fine? Is that cool? And then there is also kind of a big lift in terms of the initial planning for the loops. Where you do have to think essentially about like what 3 different kinds of work look like on any given class period, and so that takes a little bit of a lift as well. But in terms of being a way to try to get the benefits out of stations, while accepting the fact that for some students and teachers, like the transitioning part can be really hard. Learning loops has proven to be a way that has worked for some teachers. And it's something that does take a little time to get used to. And the first time you do it, it will be messy for sure. But there's promise in the practice already, and it certainly might be worth trying out on your own.